Welcome to Stories with Grandma Selene, where wisdom walks on quiet feet and the lessons of our land rise through the stories we tell. Today's tale is one drawn from the heart of northern Nigeria, a story about marriage, secrets, and the hidden battles a woman can face behind the closed doors of her new home. It is the story of Amina, gentle, hopeful, full of dreams, and the proposal she should never have accepted. A story that reminds us that not every blessing comes with light, and not every husband is the man he claims to be. Sit close. Open your hearts. Tonight's journey is deep, emotional, and filled with lessons whispered by both the living and the unseen. I still remember the day I first heard about the young woman named Amina. Her story is one that people whisper about quietly, one that teaches deep lessons about appearances, choices, and the mysteries hidden behind certain doors. It all began at her elder brother's wedding. Suleiman, a cheerful and respected young man who always believed he had good judgment. As the celebration went on, with music playing and family members dancing in bright northern attire, Suleiman introduced Amina to one of his classmates. Not a close friend, no, not someone he trusted deeply. Just someone he knew from school, Usman. At the time it seemed harmless, a polite introduction, a brief exchange of greetings and nothing more. Amina barely thought about him after that day. Weddings come with many faces, and Usman was simply one of them. Little did anyone know that this single introduction would open the door to a story darker than shadows, a story that would shake Amina's life to its core. 5 months passed before Amina saw Usman again. This time there was no celebration, no music, no dancing. It was a condolence visit. A friend of hers had lost a relative, and she went to pay her respects. The atmosphere was heavy and people spoke in low tones. There, sitting quietly among the men, was Usman. He recognized Amina first. He watched her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable, yet she brushed it off as simple familiarity from the wedding. Later that evening he pulled Suleiman aside. The conversation was brief but serious. He told him he wanted to marry Amina. Just like that. No courtship, no friendship, no gradual connection. And Suleiman, trusting the man he barely knew, delivered the message to his sister. When Amina's family heard about the proposal, they were surprised but not alarmed. In northern culture it was not unusual for a man to express interest formally, but something about the speed, about the way Usman insisted, felt unusual. Still, he came with elders, he spoke respectfully, and he presented himself as a successful, disciplined man with a stable life. Then he said something that left everyone puzzled. There is no need for Amina to bring furniture or household items. I have prepared everything. Most families would rejoice, after all it reduces cost. But Amina's parents were cautious people. So they arranged for a house inspection. What they found shocked them. The house was beautiful, modern, luxurious. Everything was new, everything was spotless. But something felt off. The guards. Strong men standing at the gate, silent, unsmiling, almost watchful. One of Amina's aunties whispered, "This house is guarded like a rock, but why?" The wedding happened quickly. Usman insisted on a fast ceremony and Amina, gentle, trusting and hopeful, agreed. At first everything seemed fine. The house was comfortable and Usman provided well. But there was a strange rhythm to his life. Every night exactly at 12:00 midnight he would leave the house. And every morning around 5:00 a.m. he returned quietly. No explanation. No questions allowed. Amina would wait, confused, worried, unable to understand why a married man kept such hours. Rumors whispered through her mind, but she ignored them, until the night she thought she saw a figure standing at the bottom of the staircase. One night, unable to sleep, Amina walked downstairs for water. The house was silent, too silent. Then she froze. There in the sitting room stood a woman. Tall, graceful, heartbreakingly beautiful. But her eyes were filled with tears. She stared at Amina with a sadness so deep it made her chest tighten. Amina blinked once, twice. Was she imagining it? Dreaming? Or was the house hiding secrets she was never told? Before she could speak, the woman slowly lifted her hand. as if warning her, or pleading, or trapped between worlds. Amina ran. She locked herself in her room and prayed until morning. The next day, when she confronted Usman, he laughed coldly. "There's nobody in this house but you," he said, dragging her from room to room. "Don't ever say such things again." But Amina would soon learn the truth. The woman she saw was not a stranger. It was Binta, Usman's late wife. And she was not at peace. Long before Amina entered Usman's life, there was another woman, Binta. Beautiful, soft-spoken, and beloved by everyone who knew her. Her death had been sudden, unexplained, and strangely quiet. People whispered that she was too young, too healthy, too full of life to simply collapse. But those who asked questions were shut down. Those who grew suspicious backed away. Her family, heartbroken, never received clear answers. And Usman mourned in a way that felt more like performance than pain. After her burial, he became even more secretive. He surrounded himself with a few powerful men, elders with strange markings, men who visited only at night. The neighbors noticed the pattern. Lights flickering at odd hours. Chants coming from the house. Usman leaving at midnight. Returning at dawn. No one spoke openly about it. In the north, some truths are too dangerous to say aloud. But everyone felt the same chill. Whatever happened to Binta was no ordinary death. When Amina moved into Usman's house, she did not know she was stepping into a place where two worlds overlapped, the living and the dead. From the very first night, she felt watched. Not with malice, but with sorrow. She would wake up suddenly, feeling a presence in her room. She would walk past a mirror and see a reflection that wasn't hers. She would hear soft footsteps behind her, then find the corridor empty. Amina thought it was fear, or loneliness, or the weight of adjusting to marriage. But the night she saw the crying woman, the night she met the spirit of Binta, she knew something was wrong in that house. And the house, too, knew she didn't belong there. Usman's routine was strict. At exactly 11:55 p.m. he would stand from the bed, wash his hands, change into plain dark clothes, and leave the house without a word. No matter what Amina asked, he never explained. No matter how she pleaded, he dismissed her. "You are a wife, you ask too many questions." But Amina noticed something else. When Usman returned at dawn, his eyes would be red. His clothes dusty. And his mood strange. Sometimes he was unusually cheerful. Sometimes he was silent and cold. Sometimes he would stare at Amina as if trying to read her soul. She began to wonder if the midnight journeys were connected to the woman she saw. And she was right. After the confrontation, Amina tried to convince herself she had imagined everything. She prayed. She fasted. She avoided being downstairs at night. But Binta's presence grew stronger. Sometimes Amina would hear quiet sobbing near the staircase. Sometimes she found the sitting room curtains swaying even when the windows were shut. One evening, while placing her prayer mat back in the corner, Amina found a single white bead on the floor. It was beautiful, hand-carved, and cold as ice. She didn't know it once belonged to Binta's bracelet, the one she wore the night she died. The house was trying to warn her. But warnings are useless when fear silences the mouth. The truth started revealing itself slowly. It began with whispers in the walls. Soft, urgent whispers calling Amina's name. Amina. Whether it was wind, spirit, memory, or fear, she did not know. One night, after Usman had left for his usual midnight journey, Amina heard movement downstairs. But this time it wasn't sorrowful. It sounded like anger. Packing. Restless. Demanding to be heard. Terrified, Amina crept down the staircase. Her breath trembled. Her heart pounded. Then she saw her. Binta, no longer crying, stood by the center table, pointing to something under the carpet. Amina gasped. She froze. For the first time, the spirit spoke. Not with her mouth, but with her eyes. Those eyes said, "You must leave." And Amina realized she had stepped into a life built on secrets darker than night. Amina stood frozen, staring at the spot Binta pointed to. Her throat felt tight, her knees weak, but something inside her, perhaps instinct, perhaps courage, pushed her forward. Slowly, she bent down and lifted the edge of the carpet. There on the polished floor was a faint chalk marking. Circular, layered, and drawn with a precision that made her shiver. Not the kind of marking anyone would make accidentally. It looked like a symbol from stories people are too afraid to discuss openly. Old stories. Dark stories. Stories of men who exchange loyalty for power, life for prosperity. Her breath caught. She had seen a similar mark once, years ago, on the floor of an abandoned house in her grandmother's village. The village elders had warned children never to enter that house. They said the man who lived there walked with forces no eye should see. So what was that same forbidden symbol doing in Usman's home? As she stared, the marking began to glow faintly, as if responding to her presence. Amina jerked backward and covered her mouth to stop a scream. When she looked up again, Binta was gone. The room had returned to silence, but the truth had already begun to speak. Something happened in that house. Something Usman didn't want anyone to discover. And Binta was not haunting Amina. She was gidding her. That night, Amina barely slept. Not because of fear, but because she finally understood. She had married a man whose life was tied to rituals so old and dangerous that even the dead could not rest. All through the day, Amina moved through the house like a shadow. Her mind replayed the words on the folded paper. Run before midnight. The message clung to her skin like harmattan dust. But how was she supposed to run? The house was heavily guarded. Even the gates opened only when Usman ordered. Amina felt trapped, like a bird in a golden cage. She tried to act normal, preparing lunch, tidying the cushions, answering calls from her mother. But her hands trembled. Her mind was counting the hours. Outside, the guards walked like soldiers on duty. Inside, the walls seemed to watch her. By evening, she found herself glancing at every clock she passed. Time felt slow, heavy, intentional, like it was warning her too. When Maghrib call to prayer echoed faintly from the neighborhood mosque, Amina felt her heart squeeze. Tonight, something was coming. Something Binta didn't want her to face. And Amina knew, if she didn't escape before midnight, she might never escape at all. Just after sunset, Amina heard the front door open. Her heart jumped, even though it was too early for Usman. A moment later, she heard a familiar voice. Amina, are you home? It was one of Usman's aunties, Auntie Laddie, a quiet woman who rarely visited. Her presence felt strange, unexpected, almost out of place. Amina came out to greet her, forcing a smile. But the moment Auntie Laddie looked at her face, her expression changed. My child, why are you shaking? Amina tried to deny it, but her voice cracked. Auntie Laddie sighed deeply and sat down. What did you see? Those 4 words drained all the strength from Amina's bones. How did she know? Amina lowered her gaze, tears burning behind her eyes. Auntie Laddie nodded slowly. I knew something like this would happen, she murmured. I begged him, I warned him, but a man who drinks from a river of power never listens to those standing on the shore. Amina looked up sharply. What do you mean? Auntie Laddie hesitated, then whispered. Usman did not bury Binta the way he should have, and the past, it does not sleep. Amina felt her blood go cold. Before she could ask more, Auntie Laddie stood abruptly. Listen to me, Amina, before midnight you must not be in this house. Then, without eating or drinking water, she walked straight out. The warning was clear. And terrifying. After Auntie Laddie left, Amina rushed to the window and watched her disappear down the road. She wanted to run after her. Beg her for help. Ask her what exactly happened to Binta. But before she could move, she noticed something that made her knees weaken. 2 guards had come forward and locked the gate with a heavy chain. Not the usual padlock. A thick, rust-colored chain she had never seen before. One of the guards tested it, pulling hard. No one enters, no one leaves, he said to the other guard. Amina's heart pounded. They were preparing for something. She stepped away from the window, breathing fast. She wasn't imagining it, she was trapped. The warning, the chain, the silence in the house. Everything pointed to one conclusion. This night was not meant for survival. As the evening deepened, the house grew colder. A strange stillness spread through the rooms, like the walls were holding their breath. Amina packed a small bag quietly. Just a wrapper, her prayer beads, her phone, and the paper Binta had left. Her hands trembled as she zipped the bag. She looked out the window again. Still locked. Still guarded. At 11:00 p.m. her fear sharpened. Usman would climb out of bed in less than an hour. She needed an escape. The crack. A weakness. She checked the back doors. Locked. She checked the kitchen exit. Locked. She checked the windows. All bolted from outside. Panic rose in her throat. Then she remembered. The small storage window upstairs that led to the back roof. A small opening no one ever noticed. Her only chance. She grabbed her bag and hurried upstairs, her heart beating so loudly she feared the walls could hear it. The window was tiny. But maybe, just maybe, she could fit through. Her freedom depended on it. Amina pushed aside the old buckets and cleaning tools to reach the small window. She stood on a stool, placed her hands on the metal frame and pushed. It didn't budge. Her breath caught. She pushed harder. Still nothing. Tears filled her eyes. But she didn't stop. Fear gave her strength she never knew she had. She leaned her full weight against the frame. And suddenly, with a sharp creak, the window popped open. Cold night air rushed into the room. Amina covered her mouth to keep from crying out. Outside, she could see the back roof, flat, dusty, and slanting slightly downward. If she could climb out quietly, she could drop into the small alley behind the house. She squeezed her body through the opening. Her shoulder scraped. Her arm burned. Her wrapper nearly tore. But she pushed. Finally, she slipped through and landed on the roof with a soft thud. For one breath, she felt relief. Then she heard footsteps. The guards were moving. They had heard something. Amina crouched low on the roof, praying the shadows would swallow her. Amina waited, her heart pounding so loudly she thought the guards would hear it. She heard them muttering near the gate. What was that sound? Check the back. Her breath froze. She moved silently along the roof, her hands and knees scraping against the rough surface. The edge of the roof wasn't far. One of the guards stepped closer. Amina held her breath. Then, a dog barked loudly from the street. The guards turned, distracted. Allah had provided a miracle. Amina took her chance. She reached the edge of the roof, closed her eyes, whispered a prayer, and jumped. She landed hard on the ground behind the house, pain shooting through her ankle. But she didn't stop. She limped toward the narrow alley, dark, empty, and silent. Just as she reached it, she heard the guards shouting behind the wall. She's not inside. Find her. Check the back. Amina didn't look back. She ran, not knowing where she was going, not knowing who to trust, only knowing one thing. She had escaped Usman's house. But Usman's secrets were not finished with her. Amina ran without looking back. The night air was sharp, cold, and thick with fear. Her ankle throbbed with every step, but she pushed forward, desperate to put distance between herself and Usman's house. The streets were quiet. Most homes were dark, only a few windows glowing faintly like tired eyes. She didn't know this part of town well. Usman had never allowed her to move freely. She only recognized the main road, not the back paths she was now taking. Her breath came in short, painful bursts. Tears blurred her vision as she limped on. Ya Allah, lead me, she whispered. A car passed slowly in the distance, and panic shot through her. What if Usman had realized she escaped? What if the guards were already searching the area? She darted behind a wall, hiding in the shadows until the car disappeared. Her phone battery was low, 10%. She couldn't risk calling her brother. If Usman traced the call, he would go straight to Suleiman's house. She had escaped the walls, but she had not escaped the danger. Not yet. Amina kept walking, limping, praying, and wiping tears from her face. The pain in her ankle grew sharper. As she turned into another narrow path, she saw a figure ahead. She froze. A man stood under a dim streetlight, leaning against a wall. He wasn't a guard, his clothes were too simple, his posture too relaxed. But fear does not reason. Amina stepped back, ready to turn and run. Then the man spoke gently. "Are you all right?" His voice was calm, low, and full of concern. Amina couldn't respond. Her throat tightened. He stepped forward slowly, showing his empty hands. "My name is Haruna. I live just down the road. You look hurt." Amina didn't trust him, she couldn't. But her ankle was swelling badly, and her vision blurred from exhaustion. She staggered. Haruna rushed forward and caught her before she fell. "Sit, please, just sit for a moment." He guided her to a low wooden bench outside a shop. Amina trembled violently. Haruna knelt beside her. "Did somebody chase you?" Amina looked at him, fear widening her eyes. Haruna sighed, as though he already knew the answer. "Don't worry," he said softly, "I won't let anyone harm you." His words were gentle, but behind them she sensed something else. A quiet strength. Haruna brought a small sachet of water from his pocket and handed it to Amina. She hesitated, then took it. "Drink slowly," he whispered. Amina obeyed, her hands shaking. After a moment, Haruna spoke again. "You're running from that big house down the road, aren't you?" Amina's heart stopped. "How do you know?" she whispered. Haruna looked around before answering. "Because you're not the first woman I've seen running from there." Amina's breath hitched. "Binta." Haruna lowered his voice even more. "There was another woman before you. I saw her one night, walking fast, crying just like you. By morning, people said she was dead." Amina covered her mouth. Her entire body trembled. Haruna continued. "I don't know what happens in that house, but everyone around here fears it." Amina closed her eyes. Everything was connecting. Everything was making sense. Haruna looked at her ankle. "You can't walk far like this. Let me help you reach somewhere safer." Amina nodded weakly. Haruna helped her stand. But just as they started walking, a car turned onto the street behind them. Amina recognized it instantly. Usman's car. Amina grabbed Haruna's arm. "That's him, that's my husband." Fear flooded her voice. Haruna didn't ask questions. He reacted instantly. "Come." He pulled her down the narrow alley beside the shop. Usman's car drove slowly, its headlights scanning the street. Amina's heart pounded against her ribs. They reached the end of the alley, where a broken fence separated two compounds. Haruna pushed aside the loose wooden plank. "Go through." Amina squeezed through the gap, scraping her arms. Haruna followed. They crouched behind a large water tank as the car's engine hummed nearby. Amina could hear Usman's voice. Sharp, angry, searching. "She can't be far, spread out." Bootsteps echoed. The guards were now on foot. Amina dug her nails into her palms to stop herself from crying. Haruna whispered, "You must not make a sound, whatever happens." She nodded, choking on her fear. Usman's footsteps came closer. So close she could hear his breathing. Then, he stopped, right beside the water tank. Amina nearly fainted. Silence. Then, "She will come back, they always come back." His voice was cold. Too cold. He turned and walked away. Amina's knees gave out and she sank to the ground. But Haruna caught her again. "You're safe for now," he whispered. But Amina knew safety was only temporary. As long as Usman lived, no woman was truly safe. Haruna led Amina quietly through back routes, avoiding main streets and open spaces. The night air was colder now, but Amina felt numb. After about 15 minutes, they reached a small compound with a wooden gate that creaked softly when pushed open. "This is my place," Haruna said. He lived alone, one room, clean, simple, with a mat on the floor and a lantern glowing softly. Amina felt a small wave of relief. It was the first place since her wedding where she felt like the walls were not watching her. Haruna boiled water and brought a bowl for her ankle. "This will help with the swelling." Amina whispered, "Thank you." Haruna nodded. "You don't need to tell me everything now, rest first." But Amina couldn't rest, not yet. She looked at him, her voice trembling. "He killed her." Haruna paused. "Who?" "His first wife, Binta." Haruna's jaw tightened. "I thought so," he murmured. Amina wiped her tears. "And if I didn't escape tonight, I would have been next." Haruna didn't respond. He didn't need to. His silence said he believed her. Exhaustion finally overcame fear, and Amina drifted into an uneasy sleep on Haruna's mat. But the night did not give her peace. She dreamed of Binta. Not crying this time, but standing beneath a tree, her eyes calm, her face peaceful. She lifted her hand and pointed to a distant path. Amina tried to follow, but the ground beneath her turned to water. She sank, struggling, gasping. "Help me," she cried. Then she felt a warm hand pulling her up. A woman's hand. "Binta." Amina jolted awake, sweating, her heart thundering. Haruna looked over. "You're safe," he said softly. But Amina shook her head. No, not until he stopped. Morning crept into the room gently, but Amina felt none of its warmth. She peeked through Haruna's window. Usman's guards were searching the neighborhood. Walking in pairs. Checking corners. Her stomach tightened. "They're still looking," she whispered. Haruna nodded grimly. "They won't stop until he tells them to." Amina stepped back from the window. Her body trembled. She wasn't just running from a man. She was running from a cult. A secret. A ritual. A darkness old enough to bind the dead. Amina realized something else. She could not run forever. She had to expose the truth. For herself. For Binta. For every woman who came after. But to do that, she needed one thing she did not have. Proof. And she knew exactly where that proof was. Inside Usman's house. The house she barely escaped alive. Amina sat quietly in Haruna's small room. Her ankle still ached, but her mind raced. She had survived Usman's house once. She had escaped his guards, his midnight rituals. But survival alone was not enough. She needed proof. Evidence of the rituals. Evidence of Binta's death. Evidence that could expose him. Haruna leaned closer. "You need a plan," he said softly. "Go back now, too dangerous. Wait too long, he will disappear, you have to be smart." Amina's mind worked feverishly. She knew the house inside out. She knew the hidden rooms, the locked doors, the ritual markings. Her heart raced as a single thought consumed her. "I will enter the house, I will survive, I will reveal the truth." Night fell again, darker than before. Haruna had given her a simple disguise, a loose veil and dark clothes. She blended with the shadows, moving through alleys and empty streets. The guards at the front gate were alert. She had to avoid the main entrance. Her path was through the small storage window, the same one she had used to escape. Her pulse quickened. She squeezed through the opening, scraping her shoulder. Pain shot through her, but she ignored it. Inside, the house was silent. Usman's bedroom door was closed. The rest of the rooms were empty, or so she hoped. Amina moved carefully to the sitting room. The chalk markings on the floor glowed faintly in the moonlight. She knelt and inspected them. Hidden beneath the chalk, she found small scraps of paper, like fragments of old rituals. Names, dates, symbols. And there it was, a folded letter written in Binta's hand. "He is dangerous, trust no one, save yourself." Amina's tears fell silently. She photographed everything with her phone. The proof was real. She whispered, "Binta, I will not fail you." Suddenly a sound. Footsteps. Usman had returned early. Amina froze. She ducked behind the curtain, clutching the phone. Usman entered, eyes sharp, face pale. He walked directly to the chalk markings, muttering words she didn't understand. It was a chant. A ritual. Amina's stomach twisted with fear. She had never seen him like this, powerful, dangerous, untouchable. Then a faint voice echoed in her mind, Binta's voice. "Now Amina, run." She didn't hesitate. Amina sprinted to the storage window. Her phone clutched tightly, documenting everything. She slipped through the window again, landing on the ground with a painful thud. Behind her, she heard Usman's shout, but she didn't look back. She ran to Haruna's safe place, heart pounding, body trembling. Once inside, she uploaded the photos and letters to her phone, sending them to Suleiman and trusted authorities. Finally, she allowed herself a small sigh of relief. The next morning, police and local authorities arrived at Usman's house. The guards tried to resist but were overpowered. The hidden rooms, the ritual symbols, the evidence of Binta's death, they were all exposed. Neighbors whispered, some crying, some angry. Amina stood behind Haruna, observing quietly. Usman was taken into custody. The truth of Binta's death and the dangers he had hidden were finally revealed. The house was emptied. The rituals dismantled. The power that had once terrified the neighborhood was gone. Amina returned briefly to collect her things. Walking through the rooms where she had lived in fear, she felt a mixture of sorrow and liberation. Binta's spirit lingered no more. But Amina promised herself she would honor her memory, speaking her story so others would know. Haruna helped Amina recover. Her ankle healed slowly, but more importantly, her heart and spirit began to heal. She moved into a small apartment of her own. The shadows of Usman's house haunted her no longer. And though fear remained a memory, courage had replaced it. Amina never forgot the lessons of that night. Power, secrecy, and fear can exist in the brightest homes. The dead may linger, and the living can be dangerous. But courage, knowledge, and faith can triumph. She shared her story quietly with those she trusted. She warned young women, neighbors, and friends about the signs. She became a living testament to Binta's warning. Run before midnight. Years later, Amina stood outside her small home, feeling the warm northern sun on her face. She remembered Binta, the haunting house, the danger that had almost taken her life. But she was alive. She was free. And she had turned fear into strength. In the distance, the city hummed with life. And in that hum, Amina knew the spirits of the past, the lost, the silenced, could finally rest. She whispered a prayer for Binta, for herself, and for all the women whose stories were yet untold. The past had tried to claim her. But she had survived. And from that survival, a story was born, one that would be told for generations. And so the tale of Amina reaches its end. A story of courage, intuition, and the silent warnings we often ignore. She stepped into a marriage decorated with wealth but rooted in darkness. Yet she escaped because she listened to the truth her spirit felt and to the warnings whispered by one who walked between worlds. Let this story remind us. Not all that shines is gold. Not every proposal is a blessing. And sometimes the quiet voice inside you is the greatest protection you have. If this tale touched your heart, subscribe to Stories with Grandma Selene, turn on your notification bell, and share this video with someone who might need this wisdom.